So thank you for coming to the SVP Ask the Experts and earned revenue. So this is something that a lot of us talk about, that nonprofits, of course, want to be able to do, but don't understand it, or it's complicated. And so we've invited some people here to talk to us a little bit about how it's done and best practices. Thank you, Arlene, for moderating this for us. Really appreciate all the time that you put into this. And I will go ahead and turn this program over to you.
Thanks, Becky. So really excited to be talking about this subject, as Becky mentioned. It is one of the things that a lot of nonprofits talk about, but actually not most of them do. And if they do it, they only do it in small percentages. So it's estimated, according to Charity Navigator, that less than 40% of most nonprofits really have multiple streams of diversified revenue. And for those that do, they usually go through the traditional methods. So maybe some grants, some diversity within the grants from corporations, foundations, and government, some individual giving, but there is a lot more out there. And so we brought on two great organizations that do this. So we have with us Ms. Pamela Allen, who is the CEO of Eagles Flight Advocacy and Outreach. And Pamela will talk to you in just a second about what Eagles Flight does. We also have Mike Gillam he is the CEO of SA Lighthouse for the Blind, and he's going to talk to us about what their organization does in general, but then both of them are going to get into diversified revenue and what they are doing to bring in other sources of revenue, just to give you guys some ideas. This is a very unique perspective for us to have, and it's just, again, to give you some ideas, to throw some things out there for you to take that back to your board, have some discussions, think about, in terms of your programming, are there ways for you to generate some revenue for your organization, have some steady income coming in, such that you don't always have to rely on some of the traditional methods. Now, you guys all know that I'm a grant writer and consultant, and so I do believe in grant writing. If you're going to do it well, but it is not the only way in which we should bring in revenue. So thank you, Pamela and Mike, for being on today. And Pamela, let's start with you. Tell us about Eagles Flight Advocacy and Outreach, what you do in general, and then we'll get into some specifics about the way in which you've chosen to diversify your revenue.
Sure. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I am Pamela Allen. I am the CEO of Eagles Flight Advocacy and Outreach. I've been operating since 2002, but became a nonprofit in 2013. We specifically went for special education advocacy, and I've been in San Antonio for a very long time and fed the homeless. I used to be known as the bread lady. So we've always done that type of ministry. It evolved for us in 2013 when we bought property and decided with this property that we were going to give animal play therapy to special needs, foster abused children, and people who have been through trauma. And so we do that as well. We now have a community center that houses our food pantry, which is Kim's Cupboard. We have a clothing pantry, a multi-generational clothing pantry, and we have Giovanni's Hug, named for Joe Ochoa, a little boy who was murdered by grandparents. And in this baby pantry, we supply formula, diapers, wipes, anything that you need to raise an infant and take the stress off of that. So we help in that arena too. We have a free laundromat for seniors, runaway teens, and families in need of help. We also promote the Baby Moses Law, and we're very passionate about that because we bury abused and abandoned infants. And unfortunately, we have quite a few of those cases. And that started in 2013 as well, when our first baby was found at the waste management facility here in San Antonio. Since then, we're in our mid-30s of burials that we've assisted with. It's mostly infants and children. However, we have been just pulled in by some of these domestic violence cases. Andreen McDonald, just we felt very compelled to help with their burials and with the care of their families. We also help with the sex trafficking issue. We work with ladies to get them reestablished in their homes, and we teach them self-defense with Ohana Academy here in San Antonio, where we help women feel empowered. We do referrals for emotional support, and we just are very, very blessed to collaborate with so many organizations here in San Antonio. And so that's what we do in a nutshell. And we're very happy to work with law enforcement here in San Antonio and to work alongside some of our city leaders.
Thank you, Pamela. I appreciate that. That was a great description of your overall organization and all of your programs. Mike, the question to you as well. Tell us about your nonprofit, who you serve, and its programs.
First of all, I'm impressed with Pamela's mission. That's a heck of a mission to be able to do all that. And I didn't never think about burials, and it sounds sad, but at the same time, it's a service everyone, many people have to have. As far as the Lighthouse goes, we've been around nearly 100 years, 88 years. So we've been in San Antonio a long, long time. We're not the oldest lighthouse in the country. I think the oldest is 102 years. And we really portray ourselves as the one-stop shop for people who are struggling with their vision. We used to be the San Antonio Lighthouse for the blind. Now it's blind and vision impaired, because we had many clients that said, well, we're not blind, so I guess we can't use you. We said, look, we want to catch you before you're blind, if we can. So we offer every service for every age, for every vision impairment. If you're a mother with a newborn struggling with a vision, we've got a support group and a program for blind babies. It goes all the way through children who are blind, legally blind, or just really struggling with their vision from 4 to 14. We have a high school program, then we go into scholarships and college. We've given about $600,000 to blind students to go to college over the years. And it goes from that into employment, which most lighthouses are about 100 around the country. We're all separate, although we share a national staff, kind of like Goodwill does. And the board some time ago decided that they wanted to expand the mission from employment. And that's how all the lighthouses were started, as employing people who are blind, because not everybody who's blind wants a job. So it goes from that to technology training, upward mobility, all those things. And then we have a great seniors program that starts about 50. Sounds young, but we have a lot of young folks running that program. And we'll actually come out to your home and give you $100 to $200 worth of assistive technology, talking watches, talking glucometers, put raised dots on your microwave, teach you how to cook, how to travel, how to get all your independence back. And it's everything we do is free. We also have a low vision clinic with optometrists, soon to be ophthalmologists, to do surgeries with UT Health. So we're the only organization in the country, because I know all the other lighthouses, that offers soup to nuts services free of charge to anyone struggling with vision. They don't even have to live in San Antonio. We've now expanded into New Braunfels. We'll be going to the area around that as well, around Bexar County. And if you can get somebody here, we don't care where they're from, we'll help you.
I love that. You guys get me so geeked up about what you do in our community. It's amazing. Thank you both. So Mike, tell us about your main sources of revenue, income producing activities that you guys have engaged in over your 100 years. What worked, what didn't, and then where are you at now?
Well, we have a lot of crazy lines of revenue. We really do, in product lines. Way back when, it started with just mechanical pencils that the government, with working with Goodwill, in any organizations that create jobs for people with disabilities, will allow you to put together a business case, submit it to them and say, we can create jobs for 5 people who are blind, assembling mechanical pencils. And it's something you need, and we can submit it at a competitive price. They'll have a vote with a presidential oversight committee, which again is part of the structure that we deal with. And if they vote it, they make it mandatory for the government to purchase. So it started with mechanical pencils, and it went into highlighters, and it went into ink pens. So most all the lighthouses have products that they develop that way to do that. So it's a little tough for most nonprofits to pursue that because we do it through our national staff and we identify the products that the government needs. It's been done, again, nearly 100 years. But what I would talk more about is the things we've done locally in San Antonio that are unique to lighthouses, unique to most places. We have the second largest manufacturing operation in the city of San Antonio to Toyota. Now, if you read the Business Journal, you'll see we've been the largest manufacturer in the city of San Antonio for 7 consecutive years. And that's because Toyota didn't turn their numbers in. But we have about 500 employees. We are an extremely large manufacturing operation. We make everything from military uniforms, again, to simple pens, pencils, highlighters. We have the contract with the government to do absorbents, anything that soaks up any kind of liquid. We have oil analysis kits. Anytime a jet fighter's flown, they have to do an oil test, and we had those kits together. And we do things for local people in the community too. We're doing a kind of a plastic see-through cube for one of the local medical companies that you can actually, that a doctor can put their hands through that cube and deal with COVID patients or any patients to protect the doctor as well. So we'll do anything and everything. With Southwest Research, our relationship there, we are sewing actually a chemical disposition bag, which weighs about 150 pounds, and it feels like metal, but they can put any kind of chemical weapons in that, heat it up to 2000 degrees and melt any of those things in it. So a lot of what I would emphasize today are relationships, all on the local level. We don't have much luck really attracting national work other than through our support staff. But if you've got the relationships locally, you can do a lot of things. Another thing we generated locally is for our military stores, we've got supply stores on military bases in New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. But we have pencils and pens and highlighters that I said that we make. And people would come through our little store here at the Lighthouse and say, we'd like to buy these things too. Could you deliver them to us? And we said, well, we're only allowed to sell them to certain people on the bases. So we set up a website and said, we're going to start selling off supplies to everybody in San Antonio. And that cost some money because you had to get a warehouse, you had to get drivers, you had to do all that, set up a website, catalog. But we worked with one of the external office supply wholesalers that works with Office Depot and Office Max and Staples. And now we have 50,000 office supply items, next day delivery, free shipping. We're faster than Amazon, and you don't have to pay Amazon Prime rates. And our prices are better. And we've got the VIA contract and the CPS energy contract and the SAWS contract. And with UTSA, over 400 customers that we didn't have just because people said, we'd like to buy that stuff from you. They also said, we don't want to buy just the blind made things. We want to buy everything at one place. So we pursued that. We also have a pretty good sized sourcing group or procurement group, because on the stores and the military bases, we have to provide anything and everything they want. If they come in and say, I need a flight simulator, I need a four-wheeler, I need a speedboat, we have to custom order because everything they buy has to be US made, and we keep the audit records that come with that. We said, well, we're pretty good at that. Why don't we see if we have any local contacts that would need to use that? And HEB said, great, we like to hire people with disabilities, and you hire people with disabilities and create jobs. How about if you do some sourcing for us? So we now provide over $1 million worth of cleaning equipment, mops, brooms, trash bags, to all the HEB cleaning crews wherever they have a store. We tried something similar with Walgreens, where we put our pens, pencils, and highlighters in an end cap with a video with blind people saying, please buy these. We really appreciate it. It'll create jobs for more and more blind individuals. Put it in 98 stores. We got a lot of visibility. We didn't get a ton of sales. And actually the audio on the video, I think, got a little annoying after you heard it 400 times, but we got great visibility. So I could go on and on and on about all the different things we've pursued, but I can tell you it all goes down to local relationships. We haven't been successful every time. We went to Toyota and said, can we sew seat belts, anything we can sew for you? And they were too worried about really the liability with blind individuals doing things like that. So we haven't been successful every time. We've had a lot of inventors come to us and say, guess what? I've come up with the latest, greatest invention, and it's going to be an electric ladder for the garage. You just hit a button and it folds up and it comes down, but they don't have any specs. They don't have any drawings, anything. We're not the best design house. We're pretty good if you can give us specs. And also we need to have a forecast. So we went to our board, and the board wanted to help because they've got contacts in the community. So we developed a screening document that said, here's what you've got to have to screen for us rather than us have to screen everything. Number one, it has to be 1,000 items a month, or we don't want to touch it. They can be small items, but it's got to be some volume. 2, it's got to be something that's blind friendly. 3, it's got to be something that can be profitable. And we have to work with them on that. But they were bringing us so many things to pursue that were really rabbit trails in many cases because it was difficult for them to determine. So I could probably talk for a long, long time, but those are some of the things we've done. I think what's really helped when we talk about diversity of income is we do require every director and above to be on a nonprofit board, as well as in a service organization, Rotary, Chamber, Lions Club, and they have to be a leader within a year and a half. They can't be just a member. Members, if you're just being a member, we don't want to support you. If you're going to be a leader, then we'll make sure you're the most successful board member. We'll buy tables, we'll buy your memberships, but that's the way you build relationships, is getting out there with folks and not them worrying about when they see Mike Gillam, they got to hold their wallet. They see Mike Gillam out painting benches and picking up trash and planting trees alongside them and giving back. And right now, our 11 directors and above are on 32 nonprofit boards and service organizations, and they're leaders in every single one. So it gets you out there and gets that, builds those relationships. So we've got, I don't know how many donations from our office supplies customers and supports for the events and those, but I think if you'll build that relationship and get out there with them and not be a quote, begging nonprofit like they have a tendency to call us, and be a giver, takes a little time, but it makes it a lot easier if you want to diversify income and even bring in more grants or donations.
Yeah, I think that's really critical. And I love the fact that you brought up the whole idea of relationships, which are critical not only in the grant world, but obviously in terms of the work that you're doing and being able to make connections with for-profits and government entities who need your services. So that's really awesome. Pamela, same question to you. What are your main sources of revenue, your income producing activities? What has worked in the past? What hasn't worked in the past? And what are you doing now that you know is working?
Well, we are extremely small. We only have 7 employees. During the summer, though, we bring on about 6 more for our summer programs. But I do believe a lot of what was said about collaborations and relationships. That has been key for us as well. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago, we did our fundraisers. We have local celebrities do comedy shows. We've had everything based around comedy, of course, with the line of work that I'm in, and seeing just all the sadness around. I do believe that laughter is the best medicine. And so we get local comedians. We've had competitions in lip thinking. I mean, we just clarity thing, and those are pretty successful for us. We're known for those things, but the great part of that, the great aspect, was bringing on those competitors, and with that, we had some local philanthropists just get involved with us because of our collaborations. And Arlene, I think you know this too, is that we do get a lot of media exposure because of what we do. And because of seeing, a lot of people follow us that way, but we get people wanting to donate because of that. A couple of years ago, another philanthropist from WellMed blessed us with close to $1 million. And with that, we do have people who write grants for us. And like you said, we have collaborations with law enforcement here. But with that huge grant. I'm going to go ahead and try and find a way to keep us going no matter what. And so I opened a store. I have a clothing store for mostly women, and most of my items are donated. So I have gently worn items and designer labels. But the odd thing that happened during COVID is we were open for like 6 months and then we had to close down. And I'm like, okay, God, I knew I heard you specifically. And how did I miss something? But here's what happened. A lot of retail stores started going under, started just like bankruptcy. But they wanted that ability to have a tax write-off. So the stores that were closing down were donating their new items. Now my store is like 2/3 of it being new items. And so we found a lot of retail stores who are so interested in how they know what we do. And then we have a very wonderful shopping area called the Quarry here in San Antonio. Those owners of the Quarry gave me a shopping space for next to nothing and did a tax write-off as well. And so I'm in a very high-end, lucrative shopping arena and next to Snooze. And when we moved in, I told Snooze, listen, I'm going to be your Cracker Barrel. I gotcha. And it's been amazing, but it's having to be creative with what you've got. And we have had to be very creative. We're very blessed to have people like Gordon Hartman, April and Sarah, those people who just believe in the mission and get others on board too. So that's helped us. We have an extremely passionate board as well, and they help us make connections. City of San Antonio is being so gracious as a place in San Antonio that we serve, and the things that we've seen during our freeze here in San Antonio. We saw the elderly and disabled being in the cold. Well, we responded very quickly, and of course had media with us, but it's because of that and what they see us do that we have more and more people come on board with us as donors. We have private donors, we have corporate donors, but we also have great allies.
So one of the things that you touched on, Pamela, which
our way.
I'm sorry, one of the things that you touched on, which I really love, is the fact that from the grant that you received, you were looking to leverage your dollars into something else that would create sustainability for your organization. So of all the things that you could have done, why did you choose Kim's Closet? Do you have a background in retail? Did you do a lot of research to determine, what was going to be that thing? And then how did you, really end up with, okay, this is what we're going to pursue?
So the answer is I have no experience in retail. My first profession was broadcasting, and my second is special education law. So that's a no. However, my research, I live in Boerne. We have 5 thrift stores here in Boerne. Each one of them benefits a nonprofit. The elderly, battered women's shelter in Kendall County, the animal hospital, all of them were doing something. And I mean, I'm an avid thrift store shopper, and I went in there and I'm like, no way, what? And so I started just kind of stalking all of them and researching that. And then a friend here in San Antonio with Revolution Thrift Store, her main purpose running her thrift store was to just bless nonprofits to continue their mission. I thought it was an amazing thing. And so I stayed there for about a month because she was raising money for us, and learned a bit more. Like, I can do this. So I just need an opportunity to purchase or to lease a building. And we were in Stone Oak. That area started construction, and it was just like, oh my gosh, we're getting our rear ends kicked over here. But then when Corey heard about me, and again, Corey, the owner, said, we see you on TV all the time. We want to bless you. And when they first took us into Coldwater Creek, the store next to Snooze, they said, well, the lease here is $14,000 a year. And they said, no, a month. And I'm like, you guys, the best. Thank you. Appreciate it. They call me back the next week. They said, well, you misunderstood. That's not what we're going to charge you. I'm like, okay. And like I said, they wrote off $250,000. They believed in the mission. Thank God. So I soar with my strengths. And that's exactly what I tell my board to do. Soar with your strengths. Some of you don't know about spec ed law, and that's okay. I'll take that one. I'll take that one. But the other things that you guys bring to the table and how you definitely soar with your strengths. And of course, we're named Eagles Flight, so we always talk about soaring. It's just been phenomenal to watch everybody with their own special characteristic and their own strength be able to swoop down and help us. And it wasn't, and here's another thing, when we had our comedy special with Gletto, we invited some business people to come and do stand-up comedy. One of them is now taking us under their wing, multi-million-dollar family who's just doing amazing things. And they said, we're doing a gala for you because you need hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't just need this. And so we're going to do your gala. And so that it's just bringing people in, building that relationship, but then being that amazing, trustworthy, passionate, that's another thing, passionate cause. They wanted to stand with us.
That's great, Pamela. Thank you so much. Mike, tell us in more detail about SA Lighthouse's manufacturing program, how it supports the mission, and what, road bumps and lessons you've learned along the way with this revenue stream.
Sure. One thing I didn't mention we do as well is when we started selling off supplies, some of the customers said, well, we need furniture too. Do you sell furniture? And we said, no, but we can surely start. So we set up a furniture group and got some suppliers, not used furniture. And so we now do office design, furniture, cubicles, carpeting, curtains, you name it, we'll do it. And it's expanded not only commercially, we do a lot for Gordon Hartman and his camps, but also we chase new companies when they come into town and get new space. But it's now on our military bases as well to do that. So I would say manufacturing, we started very, very simply because I guess early on, we didn't think blind people could do a lot, and shame on us. But with technology, it became more and more apparent. And with the blind folks telling us, look, we can do a lot more than you think, that we said, well, how about sewing? If you get us computerized sewing machines and you build little fixtures, we can feel where the material goes. We can probably do that too. And so I think the most limiting factor to people who are blind are people who aren't blind. Because we sit there and think, oh my gosh, if I lost my vision, I'm helpless. They don't feel that way. And thank goodness they don't. So we jumped into that and we spent a lot of money in computerized sewing machines. But I will tell you, when we talk diversity of income, you'd be surprised how companies are willing to come forward if you need equipment for that, because you're trying to get it to be self-sustaining or a little bit more self-sustaining. And if you've got a business case, you can say, look, if I could have 5 sewing machines, I can do this. We went to Valero on a visit and we needed a cutting machine to cut the material. It was $130,000. But our business case said, guess what? We can save $350,000 a year. We can create 5 jobs, 3 for people who are blind. We can be much more responsive to the military because we're having to outsource all this. And we got a $130,000 grant. And it saved us $750,000 a year in perpetuity, because most of the people that have money are business people. So if you can talk business to them, and I remember calling back and saying, guess what? The first 6 months we saved the $350,000 when I called the CEO at Valero. He said, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I said, I'll give you an update at the end of the year. The update was it was over $750,000. He said, so I gave you $130,000. You saved $750,000. You created 5 jobs. He said, I've never had a return like that. Never in my life. He said, what's next? What can I give you money for next? And I wasn't ready. I should have been. Caught me off guard. And I said, well, we have a new building. He said, how much? I said, $750,000. because that's a lot of money. 2 weeks later, we had a check for $500,000 because it's a business person talking to a business person in business language. USA gives us money for sewing machines because what they obviously are tied to the military. We can take those uniforms that we're making that are prototypes that aren't even out in the field, send them to them in the foundation. They take them to their board. They get kudos. They look like world beaters, and we help them look great doing it. So that's what I'd say. It's a long answer to your question. I didn't answer it directly. The scary thing about getting into all these manufacturing things is you're very, very dependent on the government, because the government's the only place that demands US made products. Everybody else, probably there's nobody on this call that has anything made in the US. It's sewn. It's Vietnam, it's Peru, Bangladesh, Mexico, who knows where it is. So you're dependent upon the government, and they demand every piece has to be US made. Every pull, every zipper, every piece of Velcro. So we're very dependent upon them, and it's dangerous. So 93% of our total revenue comes from the federal government, even though it's a lot of different product lines. We get no money from the city, no money from the state, no money from the feds. We have to bid on the contracts. So a perfect example, and this is probably the worst example, is last August, the pandemic's going on, the National Guard's been activated, and they called and said, Mike, you got to make more uniforms. You got to bump it up another 30, 40%. We were having trouble getting people to come in. So we're going 90 miles an hour, trying to produce this for them, all the way up until we get an email, just an email, August, about the 12th. And it said, guess what? We just went through our warehouse, found that we have 30,000 pairs of those pants you're making, and we don't need any for 2 years. 120 people out of work. And see, we don't lay people off. They'll come to work and we'll pay them every penny every day, even if they have to sleep, which they don't sleep. So we had to run all over the place, call the national, scrounge everything we could, talk to local companies to be able to do it. And we were able to get enough work to keep people busy, but it's not very profitable work. So we'll be profitable thanks to the military stores, but the plant's not going to make much money this year. And so the people know it because they're on profit sharing. Everybody we have is on profit sharing, whether you're a pencil maker or whether you're a CEO. So there are some scary things being tied to big customers. On the commercial side, Walmart, there's several lighthouses that have Walmart as a customer, and Walmart has completely taken over. Completely taken over. And Walmart has a tendency to bid that stuff regularly. So you hire all these people, you get them for a year and a half, Walmart bids it out, you lay them all off. Well, we don't do that. And you don't lay blind people off. So that's probably the biggest danger. So we have multiple sewing contracts in case one falls apart, we can move over to another one. But you do have to have that diversity of income. So that's what I'd say is the danger that we run into.
Yeah. Pamela, you have alluded to this a little bit in terms of, some of the roadblocks and things that you experienced in terms of construction near your first store, and then COVID related issues. But outside of those, what have been some other, bumps or lessons learned in terms of having a retail store that you can share with, maybe other nonprofits who are considering that?
I guess just having the ability to accept everything as a donation and to see value in everything that's brought to you. People are just like, well, I have some plates that I want to bring you. And I'm like, oh, great. We help people get reestablished all the time. We have women. Oh, so you'll take them because nobody wants to take my household stuff. And I said, yeah, we'll take them. And it's that ability to just be creative with the donations that leads them to bring more. And so right now we have two huge families that have donated all of their mothers and fathers' belongings because they've passed. And so they're like, but a lot of people won't take some of this stuff. And I said, no, we take it all. And the great thing about that is that we have pastors on the east side who need our help. and we know what type of clothing to get to them. We have pastors on the north side that have rehabilitation centers, and so we take that to them as well. And so we share, and we're just really always encouraging, because at some point, with COVID, a lot was getting just, we don't want it, don't bring it. And so people were just very puzzled. Even because we would take their donations, we even go to their home and pick up donations. And it's just been really interesting, the amount of people who are giving in once they understand your mission. And we had to make our mission very clear. This lady just said, man, I really love what you do. Here's some jewelry. And she put it on the counter. I'm like, oh, thank you. And she said, it's David Yurman. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I had to look it up. I don't know what David Yurman jewelry is. I'm like, it was $1,800. And she does. It's the value in every donation, no matter where it comes from. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't like other agencies being particular. No, we'll take everything, and with gladness we'll share it. And so that's one of the things that we've learned along the way. And again, I was not in retail, and my assistant, she and I were both advocates for the refugees together. So we're just looking, and I said, listen, God's going to lead the way. But I did get one enough to hire one who I know just to consult with me, because I didn't know. But after all my research, I went ahead and I went to training and classes on how to lay out clothes. I mean, I didn't realize there was such a thing. But it's just been a learning experience for me, and learning to take those moments to polish what we're doing and still continue to serve, because that is part of serving. I don't want to have shifts or 3 years. I want to be able to continue to serve. And we've had to learn that, and just learn to educate ourselves on all things.
Yeah, that's good. You both have talked about, your board being involved in the process of these alternate sources of revenue. And you both have also talked about learning from other organizations. Mike, you mentioned, Goodwill, and Pam, you mentioned some of the other ones in Boerne that had storefronts that were giving to nonprofits. Tell us a little bit more about your board involvement, Mike. Are they, helping with securing contracts, putting the information out there? How does your board help you to be able to, expand these lines of revenue and support your mission?
Sure. Well, when we told the board that they didn't have to fundraise, we said, we're going to trade fundraising for visibility. So give us speaking engagements, bring tours through. Your job is to be ambassador. So we're not going to make you go ask your friends for money, but you got to support our events. You have to give money yourself, but you got to be out there in the community. And we're going to give you a list, and we go through that list with any potential board member. Here are the things we're going to expect from you. We're going to expect speaking engagements. We're going to expect you to bring groups through. If you've got your family members, if you've got associations you're members of, chamber, any of that, we want to host all of it. We'll pay for breakfast, we'll pay for lunch, and we won't ask anybody you bring through our doors for money. Never. Now, if they ask us, which they always do on every tour, we'll have a list for them. So don't feel like we're going to hit on your friends when they come in, because they're going to hit on us, we hope. And we'll do all the conversion. You don't have to do that. Part of it is, one of the nice simple ones is identify office supply clients, identify furniture clients. All of them are in, some of them are retired, but they have a network. They're on other boards as well. If you're on a board, nonprofit board, why wouldn't the nonprofit want to buy office supplies from another nonprofit and keep them right here in San Antonio, as opposed to sending them off to Delray Beach, Florida, or somewhere in the Northeast, where those people or those companies are actually located. And so it's a really easy sell to do that. But we go through that list upfront, documented, and then we have a page on fundraising that said, if you're good at fundraising, you can do that. We're not going to tell you can't fundraise for any means, and usually there are a few people that are good at it. We also ask them to pursue grants. If you know any type organizations that have grants, send them our direction. All you have to do is go online. So they know explicitly what they're to do to help support the mission. The other thing we do is every board meeting, we kick it off with the board chair recognizes anyone that's done anything significant in that last quarter to contribute to that. So-and-so brought, referred an individual to us. So-and-so gave us a lead on office supplies, turned out into $20,000 sale. Anything they've done, so-and-so's brought a group in. And as a result, they volunteered to do this. So you recognize those people right up front, and everybody wants to be on the list. They don't want to go through a board meeting, they don't get recognized. So there's incentive for them to do that. We give them, right off the bat, we give them a Lighthouse pin, lapel pin that we expect them to wear. And sometimes they're on multiple boards, so they can't wear ours all the time. So we make ours a little larger. We also give them shirts. We give them all those things. We give them an engraved executive pin that our blind folks put together. And we also do that with all the employees. So we design shirts, logos, things that they want to wear to increase that visibility. I remember I was designing polo shirts, and one of them came to me and said, Mike, we don't wear polo shirts. We wear like biker t-shirts. Okay, we'll design some biker t-shirts. So we took the Harley Davidson logo, turned it into the Lighthouse logo, didn't get any suits filed against us. And so they wear those. And they said, well, Mike, we need tie-dye t-shirts. We're from the South. Okay, we'll do tie-dye. We did Day of the Lighthouse instead of Day of the Dead and put lighthouses in the skull's head. So we do that all the time. So they'll do that. And on top of that, they still came back and said, Mike, I don't like all the colors you have. My favorite color is chartreuse or something. And you don't have it. I said, I tell you what, so everyone knows you can bring any piece of clothing you have, dump it in my office. We'll logo it for free on the front and back. We want to be a sandwich board, right? And give it back to you. So it gives me a reason, or helps me to serve them and come out and give them something. They're proud to wear it. We give them catalogs and say, look, you can help your job security by getting the word out. And if you know someone, fine, great. So that's a little more than what you asked for. But again, it's visibility, it's job security, it's catering to those folks so they're proud to be out in front of everybody and share the Lighthouse.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Pamela, same question for you. How is your board helping you in terms of these this other source of revenue? What do they do for you? What do they do for the mission of the organization?
Well, all of them actively seek funders. They're very engaged. We even have, you're talking about bikers a minute ago. Well, I just retired from being their chaplain. And so one of the things that has happened, the bikers community has embraced us. And we have two of our board members who were guardians of the children, and we love guardians of the children, but they seek out partners for us, funders. All of these board members are so active in promoting the Baby Moses Law, which for me is invaluable. I mean, we stick that stuff in bathrooms at Walmart and restaurants, and they carry them with them. It's our mission to save as many lives as we can. And so it's really great because we have people of all different walks. We have the Bexar County clerk who's on our board of directors, and she connects us with a lot of the leaders in the city. And we also have a pastor that is connected. So I love the way they engage, and they're just about as passionate as I am about saving and enhancing the lives of children. It's the like-mindedness of all of us who just want a better future for our babies.
So once you have established, some line of revenue in terms of the different things that you're doing, for those organizations that just may be starting this process of thinking about that or engaging in it, what would you tell them in terms of like what they should look for as they design this roadmap, determine like proof of concept, timeline and goals to figure out if it's working really well or not? Either in terms of your own experiences, Mike, for you, some of this has existed even before you joined Lighthouse, But as you've developed, new ways to do some of the manufacturing, what would you tell those other organizations who are thinking about this? How much time should they give something? What should be their goals and their expectation? Who should be involved in that process? If you could shed some light on that, starting with you, Mike.
Sure. I was fortunate to lead a commercial diversification task force for 2 years nationally for all the lighthouses. So I learned from them all the things they did that they were successful. And first thing I think you need to do is determine what kind of labor force do you have? Is it going to be all volunteers? In our case, they're blind, right? 75% of the folks have to be blind or we can't stay in business. I tried to help Haven for Hope and said, what kind of labor force do you have? Well, we've got all these homeless people. I said, okay, great. What kind of turnover do you have? Well, they leave all the time. I said, well, you're going to need to take something that doesn't require a lot of training, right? And you need to have something that you can make a few errors here or there and not, blow up the company you're working with. So have you ever thought about grounds maintenance and janitorial? The worst thing happens, you didn't clean the toilet all the way. Okay, somebody will give you the benefit of the doubt. If you don't mow it perfectly and go over a plant or something that you shouldn't, they're not going to go fire you tomorrow. So I said, look at your labor force, look at the turnover, and then determine what kind of things you can pursue. You also need to start with a friendly customer that wants you to succeed. That's why relationships are so important. You can go to, many of the lighthouses go to some of their big local customers. And an example in Florida, they went to Disney World and said, do you have anything we can do that's real simple, doesn't require a lot of money, a lot of capital for equipment? And they said, well, we have all these brochures we have to stuff in baskets and in folders. Do you think you could do that? Well, yeah. Well, that created a lot of jobs for people who were blind, didn't cost them any money, had a customer that wanted them to succeed and leverage that in their PR. And they were able to make some money and create employment and build that relationship. So I think those are the kind of things you want to go into. You don't really want to go into something that's really capital intensive to begin with. And you don't want to go in with a customer that's super demanding and you have complex work. You need to have successes early on. And the way you have those successes is you take on something relatively simple that you can make mistakes and the quality doesn't have to be 100%. And it was somebody that really wants you to succeed. So those are some of the things I would say, having worked with several nonprofits with stores and things like that, to try to help them get up and running.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Pamela, same question for you. What advice would you offer for those that are considering another source of revenue that are just maybe starting off in the idea process or maybe are engaged in it, and how should they evaluate their program?
So I'm going to tell you, starting Eagles Flight from the ground up, that was a vision for me, and I had my faith to lean on to get to that vision. However, your faith is going to carry you so far, but your determination, your perseverance are actually going to get you there. You have to be able to take that shovel and start digging up, cultivate those relationships. I always let my staff know, listen, it's not the best, but we're going to learn and we're going to become better people through even our mistakes. I have definitely made an effort to create those strong foundations and relationships, which I think both of us have talked about, that strong relationship that's going to stand with you through good times and bad times, but who's also going to promote you. I've been able to go into different crowds and arenas, and one person was, oh, I've heard about you. You're this lady or you're that lady. But the point is, it's just being able to stand and do that hard work. It was a lot of hard work to get started in it, blood, sweat, and tears. Wow, I'm going to tell you, I've had lots of those, but your vision is going to be what keeps you going in the midst of all of the trials. And no, you didn't get a grant. I told someone I was just getting tired of being told no. Well, I have a store, and so I'm not going to be sidelined by someone saying no. And no isn't a personal thing. And that's the other thing I've had to learn. Just because someone says no, you got to keep on going. And if you know that that's the vision you have in your heart, pursue it with all that is within you. Pursue it, because we've been able to do some phenomenal things, and we added things. Listen, I didn't think that when I just spec ed law was going to be my profession. I never saw myself burying babies, but it was something that had to be done. And there are people that still ask me, why is it that you do that? And all I can say is, for the dignity of the child. I believe that that's important. There's no other explanation other than just wanting to make that difference. And now we've involved domestic violence and human trafficking and put that under our umbrella and said, here we are. Missed out on. And so, if anything, let your passion for what you do be that driving force within you. And I believe that even after all the blood, sweat, and tears, you're going to see the fruit of your labor.
Yeah. So, you know, both of you have brought up some great points, and I just want to thank you so much for being on here today with SVP and just giving us your experience, your wisdom, and just sharing that with your nonprofit community. Really heard some amazing stories of just the passion in terms of what you both do. I actually didn't even think about it until you both started talking, that I brought on, you know, 2 organizations that deal with people with disabilities. That wasn't by intention, but here we go. And, you know, what I loved is that we heard from you, Pamela, you know, in terms of soaring within your strength. And Mike, as you mentioned, you know, the worst thing for people with disabilities are those of us sometimes who don't have them, right? And the constraints that we put on them. So just really love what you're doing in the community. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to others about this. You know, what I also heard from both of you is that you do approach your nonprofits not only with the passion and that amazing desire to serve, but you also treat it like a business, and you've educated yourselves along the way to make sure that these lines of revenue would be successful for the sustainability of your organization. So again, just thank you for coming on, and I'm going to turn it over to Becky, who's going to tell us give us some information about SVP.
Okay.
Hey, thank you again. You don't need lots of info about us, but certainly we want to be able to, you know, serve you guys. I don't think that either one of y'all are engaged yet with our Catch a Fire program. Not sure, Mike, that y'all are a great candidate for it, but you never know. But that is skills-based volunteers. Anytime, of course, you need help, you can always just call us directly. What SVP, our giving model is time and treasure. So sure, we'll write a grant here and there, but what we really want to be able to provide to nonprofits is our hands and our heart for help in whatever skills that's one of us or 25 of us may bring to the table. So thank you for what you do. If you ever need something from us, just shoot us, either one of us, an email, and we will see if we can address it. Otherwise, I am very excited to know a little bit more about you guys. Mike, I've always known San Antonio Lighthouse from Jonna. So it was great to meet you through my chamber work. And Pamela, what a wonderful, wonderful mission. Did not know about you guys. I am going to start bringing you my things instead of Goodwill, even though they're also a great program. But thank you for both for what you do. If y'all don't know, also Alec, he's the head of our program group. If y'all don't know him, he's wonderful. And thank you for your time. And let us know again if y'all need anything. Otherwise, I will get you back to a warm Tuesday afternoon.
Okay. Well, thanks for making us cooler.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.